Hello everyone. This is the 10th part of the story, I'm Voldemort. Chapter 77 Yoink. With a cloak in hand, Tom could start implementing his plan to enter the Gryffindor common room. First things first, Tom had to find out if Charles had the cloak in the first place. The best way to do that is going into the astral plane and having a look in his room. After classes the next day, Tom went to his room, left his physical body, and entered his astral form. He entered the Gryffindor common room by phasing through the door and went looking for the dorm room Charles sleeps in. Each room is shared by 4 to 6 students as Gryffindors share rooms. When Tom found the room, he started looking through Charles' stuff. The cloak wasn't anywhere in the room, but Charles does have a trunk that's locked tight. Tom was about to give up his search when he remembered that he can phase through anything in his current form. Could he take a peek into the trunk, or would it be too dark? Poking his head into the trunk, Tom could see fairly well. The slight light given off by his astral form lit the inside of the trunk well enough for him to almost tell what he's seeing. After searching the entire trunk as best as he can, Tom could swear that he saw the cloak. Either that or it was just a normal cloak that he's mistaking as the Deathly Hallow. Either way, Tom would have to go take a look in his physical form. If it's the real cloak, he'll hopefully be able to steal it. If not, then he tried and that's what counts. The problem now is how the hell is he going to get that trunk open? It seemed to be keyed to Charles' magic, so pour in the magic and it will open. How can I get a hold of his magic and then transfer it into the lock? Tom thought as he tried to think of the best way to go about his robbery. While pondering over his options, Tom decided to use runes to seal his friend's magic into an object. Once it's sealed, he can add to the runes for some sort of transfer sequence later on. Making a set of runes to hold magic was harder than expected. It took Tom a month to finally get the runes down. It wasn't just the runes that gave him a problem either. The object had to be something fairly sturdy, or else it would literally crumble into dust once magic is pushed inside. The objects that seemed to work the best were wand woods. Any wood that is used for wands could hold a good amount of magic without any adverse effects. With the container ready, Tom needed to get some of his friend's magic. This was a lot harder than he thought it would be. At first, he wanted to find a way to simply touch the wood to him and take the magic, but that would never work. The next plan was to rely on the Slytherins in Charles' classes to get it for him. Tom handed a piece of wood with the runes engraved on it to specific Slytherins and ordered them to stick it to the bottom of Potter's desk in each class. The storage blocks would collect leftover magic in the air. Charles would have to use magic for the practical portions of his classes and the blocks would absorb anything left over. It only took a day for a few of his followers to return with multiple pieces of wood filled with Potter's magic. Tom then spent a week coming up with a delivery mechanism to push the magic into the trunk. It was easier than he thought it would be. Just a few extra runes on the block and it was done. The week was actually spent overthinking it and failing horribly. Once he found out he was overthinking it, Tom wanted to smash his head against the wall. Now that Tom has his way into the trunk, he thought of just opening a portal into the dorm room, but would Lady Hogwarts allow him to steal from a student so blatantly? She's already allowing him to portal in and out of the school as he pleases, so Tom decided to take the slightly harder route. He doesn't want to anger the all-powerful castle by using the privilege she gave him to steal from her students. Based on what he's heard of her from the hat, she cares deeply for the students. Since Tom is taking the harder route, he needs to make a polyjuice potion targeted towards someone in Gryffindor. What better person than the one he's about to rob? His good friend, Charles Potter. All that Tom needs is a lock of his hair, but how will he get it without being noticed? Well, that was easier than he thought it would be. Charles has fairly long hair, and Tom was able to take a quick snip of it while he was distracted. No one saw since they were alone studying in the library. After making the potion, Tom instructed Druella to keep Charles busy. It's dinner time, so she should have an easy job. Once he knew she had him distracted, Tom drank the polyjuice potion and headed for the Gryffindor common room. He used the password and strolled right in without any problems. When he arrived in the dorm room, Tom went straight for the trunk and held the block up to the key area. Activating the block, it glowed for a moment and the locks on the trunk popped open. Fishing through the trunk, Tom found the cloak, and as he hoped, it seems to be the right one. He then switched the real cloak with the fake, closed and locked the trunk, and strolled out as if nothing happened. When he was about to open the door and leave the common room, he received a message through the mark from Druella. Charles is on his way to his room. He said he needs to check on something. I tried to stall, but he just ran off. Fuck. Tom thought as he draped the cloak over himself and waited by the Gryffindor common room exit. When the door opened and Charles came walking in, Tom slipped through the door before it could close all the way. Outside the common room, Tom could see the fat lady portrait looking confused. Didn't Charles just enter a moment ago? She thought as she rubbed her eyes for a moment. Tom didn't bother sticking around and ran to his room. Once there, he opened a portal to Camartage and started analyzing the cloak beside the resurrection stone. 2 down and 1 to go. Chapter 78 to War. With the cloak and the stone both being analyzed, Tom returned to school as if nothing happened. Tom spent the rest of his free time before Christmas break working on Project Gilgamesh. He would practice conjuring eldritch weapons and tried moving them away from him, but no matter how much he practiced, he always failed. The second that an eldritch weapon left his grasp, it would disappear as if it were never there. Like this, classes passed quickly and Christmas break arrived. Tom took the train back with Druella as always. When they arrived at King's Cross Station, Tom turned to Druella before disembarking. Hey, Drew. Tom calls and Druella stops before walking out of their compartment. What? She asks. Do you want to go to Italy with me? Maybe fight some Nazis? Tom asks and Druella looks at him with a shocked expression. Are you crazy? What if we run into Grindelwald? Do you want to die? Druella starts berating Tom with a worried expression. Look, if we run into Grindelwald, we retreat as fast as we can. I don't necessarily need you to come with me, but I have some business to take care of. You can come along if you want to. Tom says and Druella lets out a sigh. You're going whether I come along or not, aren't you? She says as she stares at him in annoyance. Yeah, pretty much. Tom states with a smile on his face. Then I guess it's decided already, isn't it? Are we leaving now? She says with a smile to match Tom's. No, I have to get some things ready before we venture into the war zone. Go home and I'll come to get you when we're leaving. Tom says and opens a portal in the compartment. See you soon. Sigh, yeah, see you in a bit. Druella replies as the portal closes behind Tom, leaving her alone in the compartment. When she knew Tom was gone, the smile dropped from Druella's face. She couldn't help but worry about their trip to Italy, but that doesn't mean she will back down. Tom may be her lord now, but he's also her friend. She won't leave him to go into a war zone alone. Tom's already been notified by his trust elf Mimsy that Captain America has arrived in Italy. The show will begin tomorrow, so Tom won't pick Druella up until then. Before heading out to a war zone, Tom had a few things to get prepared for. 1. He didn't wear his vaulting boots in Hogwarts. He didn't want anyone to discover the boots' magical nature. If that were to happen, people would ask questions and that would be annoying. Other than the boots, Tom will obviously be taking the snake totem necklace with him. That's something he always wears, even in Hogwarts. It can be easily hidden under his robes, and he feels sort of empty when he doesn't have the totem. Kind of like a piece of him is missing. After packing the normal essentials away in his shrinkable trunk, Tom started searching for anything in Camartage that could lend him a hand during a fight. During his search, he found nothing that could help him. He was hoping to find some sort of weapon, but nothing could be found. It's not like a relic would just randomly accept him out of nowhere. He does pack a few of the invisibility cloaks from Slytherin Manor that were left over. They could come in handy in a pinch. Before leaving on the next day, Tom decided to go and speak to the Ancient One. He found her in her room early in the morning reading her novels and eating snacks. "What troubles your mind, Thomas?" she says as she continues reading her book. "I'm leaving tomorrow. Going to Italy," Tom says with a stoic face as he sits across from his teacher. You wouldn't be going to see Captain America again, would you?" she says as she already knows Steve is there. "You make it sound like I'm sneaking off to see my boyfriend." Tom replies with a fake pout. "So you are going to see the captain? Are you sure you're ready? War isn't as great as you may think it is. Especially this one," the Ancient One says as she looks up at Tom and away from her book. "Yeah, I have to start venturing out of the nest at some point," Tom says with a small smile. "I'm surprised you aren't lecturing me on timelines or something. I believe in my student. He may be a troublemaker, but he'll do what's right," she says as she gets back to reading. "Hee, who knew you thought so highly of me?" Tom says as he sits a bit straighter with his chest pushed out in pride. "Who said I was talking about you? Now get out so I can read in peace," she says as she shoos Tom out of her quarters. "Love you too, teacher." Tom smiles as he can tell she's worried for him. She can't see his future, so anything could happen. The Ancient One would never know if he died on his trip in Italy. As Tom is leaving the room, the Ancient One peeks her head above her book. "Don't get yourself killed or I'll bring you back and kill you myself," she yells as Tom leaves and closed the door behind him. Tom opened a portal and walked straight into Rosier Manor as if he owned the place. When he arrived, Lord and Lady Rosier seemed to be out. "Drew, you ready to go?" Tom calls and Druella comes down the stairs dressed differently than usual. "Huh?" Tom says as he sees Druella in Muggle clothing. She's wearing black jeans, a white button-up shirt, and tall black boots without a high heel. Tom starts to notice her curves that were once hidden by wizarding robes. "What? I'm not allowed to like Muggle clothing styles? Besides, it's way more practical to wear during a fight," she says, and Tom can't help but agree. "True, do you have everything you need?" Tom asks as she isn't carrying anything. "Yeah, everything is inside my trunk," she says and points to the pendant on her necklace. "Good, let's go then." "Mimsy," Tom calls. "Pop. Master ready time go?" Mimsy asks as she appears. "Yeah, take us to a secluded spot close to the captain," Tom says, and Druilla looks confused. "We're meeting a captain?" she asks with a questioning gaze. "You'll see when we get there," Tom answers as Mimsy pops them away. All three of them appear at the military camp in Italy. Before doing anything, Tom casts a notice me not on him and Druilla. "Thanks, Mimsy. You can return to whatever you were doing before," Tom says, and Mimsy pops away. When Tom was about to start looking for Captain America, he could hear the sounds of a crowd mocking someone. Following the sound, they saw where it came from. "Bring back the girls." Soldiers start chanting. I think they only know the one song. But let me. I'll see what I can do," Captain America says, slightly flustered from a stage surrounded by soldiers. "You do that, sweetheart." A soldier in the crowd yells. When Tom saw Steve, he couldn't help but feel bad for the guy. At least he's trying his best. Chapter 79 Introductions. Nice boots, Tinkerbell. Someone from the crowd jeered at Steve. The crowd of soldiers laugh and take out all their frustrations on poor Captain America. Come on, guys. We're all on the same team here. Steve tries to calm the crowd of soldiers. As this was happening, Tom and Druella made their way to the stage. They stayed close enough to watch the show and keep track of Steve's location. Hey, Captain. Sign this. A soldier stands, turns around, and pulls his pants down, showing his bare *SS. The crowd starts laughing and throwing things at poor Steve. Up on stage in spandex, getting ridiculed. This truly isn't his day. These muggles are disgusting. Druella says through the mark. Well, they are fighting a very taxing war. This is just them getting their frustrations out. Tom replies as he watches Captain America retreat backstage. Bring back the girls. The crowd starts chanting again. The showgirls then come out and start dancing for the soldiers. The crowd's mood immediately turns a 180 and they all start cheering the girls on. As the show ended and the soldiers cleared out, Steve Rogers could be seen sitting on the edge of the stage, sadly watching the soldiers walk by. He wished more than anything that he could join the war with them. That was pretty rough to watch. Tom says as he sits down next to Steve. Huh? Steve suddenly becomes alert. He didn't hear anyone walking up to him, and that hasn't happened in a while. Ever since he became a super soldier, Steve's senses could pick up on anything. You with the Brits? Steve asks as he looks at the guy sitting next to him. He looks a bit young to be a soldier. Something like that. Tom says, and he wasn't lying. So, is this all you want to be, Steve? What are you talking about? Steve replies with a confused expression. A spandex-wearing monkey that dances for Uncle Sam's wallet? Is that all you want to be? You know, you could end this war if you put your mind to it. Tom asks. Who are you? Steve asks as he clenches his fists in anger. Just a friend that came here to give you a wake-up call and maybe help in the fight to come. Tom says as he gets up and walks off stage. A fight? What fight? Steve says as he follows Tom off stage. Hey, I'm talking to you. See you soon, Captain. Tom says and disappears from Steve's sight. Steve freezes and stares at the spot Tom disappeared. He had no idea what just happened. Hello, Steve. What are you looking at? Peggy arrives and breaks Steve from his stupor. While Peggy is giving Steve his pep talk, Tom is watching from the same place he disappeared. All he did was cast a notice me not, and that gave him his cool exit. What do you think, Drew? Was that a cool exit or what? Tom asks through the mark. It was all right. A bit flashy but stylish nonetheless. Can you explain to me why we're here now? What's so special about the guy in the tights? She replies and Tom looks over at Peggy and Steve. Steve is a man that used to be so short and small that he was close to being considered a midget. Tom says and Druella looks at Steve appraisingly. Well, he must have had one hell of a growth spurt. She says with a look that said she didn't believe him. It's true. He was involved in a secret experiment to make a super soldier. The experiment succeeded, but the brains behind the operation died. Since the Americans couldn't make any more super soldiers, they won't let Steve fight in the war. He has super agility, strength, speed, endurance, and reaction time. He's quite literally a one-man battalion. The higher-level Americans are too afraid he'll die or get captured and the enemy will study his body. Some think only one super soldier can't get the job done. while others want to keep him safe so they can run tests on him and recreate the super soldier experiment. He's been doing these types of shows all over America. It's the only thing they allow him to do, and it raises money for the war. He's a make-believe hero when he could be the real deal. Tom says, and Druella is shocked. Muggles created a way to enhance themselves without magic? Druella says as she has a hard time grasping this. Yes, isn't it amazing? Science is truly the magic of Muggles. Tom says with a smile. This is troubling. What if they use this science to find our communities? We're hidden for a reason. Druella said with a worried expression. I have no doubt that will happen sooner or later. Tom replies with a nod. Why are you so calm? This isn't good. She says as she starts worrying. Don't worry so much. This is one of the reasons I've been taking in followers. Wizards are too pig-headed and stuck in their ways to move forward, so we will push the wizarding world forward ourselves. We'll be ready for the reveal and everything will be all right. Trust me? Tom says, and Druella starts to calm down. Yeah, I trust you. While talking to Peggy, Steve found out that his best friend Bucky Barnes is captured. He and Peggy went to Colonel Chester Phillips to find out if Bucky is alive. They found out he's alive and captured along with other soldiers in a Hydra base 30 miles behind enemy lines. No one has a plan to get them back, and Steve is not happy about it. Of course, Tom and Druella have been following and watching the show. After being told off by Colonel Phillips, Steve returned to his tent and started packing his things. What do you plan to do? Walk to Austria? Peggy asks as she watches Steve frantically pack. If that's what it takes, yes. Steve replies as he packs. You heard Phillips, your friend is most likely dead. Peggy tries to discourage him from going. You don't know that for sure. Steve says as he continues packing. Even so, he's devising a strategy. If he detects. She starts and Steve interrupts her. By the time he's done that, it could be too late. You told me you thought I was meant for more than this. Did you mean it? Steve stops packing and looks straight into Peggy's eyes. Every word. She replies. Then you gotta let me go, Peggy. Steve says as he finished packing and throws his bag over his shoulder. This doesn't change the fact that you have no way of getting there. Besides walking, of course, which will take time. That's time that your friend may not have. Peggy says, and Steve stops and looks at her. Then I'll run. He replies. There's no need for that. I'll give you a lift to Austria. I did say I would help in the fight to come, didn't I? Tom announces his presence as he and Druella sit next to each other on the bed in Steve's tent. Both of them completely visible to Steve and Peggy. The second Peggy hears someone else in the room, her training kicks in and she pulls her pistol. Who are you and how did you get here? She says as she aims her gun at the two Hogwarts students. Chapter 80 Banana. Who are you and how did you get here? Peggy questions as she points her pistol at Tom and Druella, who are lounging on Steve's bed casually. When Steve saw Tom again, he didn't know what to say. Once again this mysterious guy appears out of nowhere. The captain still isn't sure if he saw him disappear earlier or not. Was I seeing things? He thought as he has a hard time wrapping his head around this entire situation. Druella stares at the gun curiously as if it holds no danger towards her. Tom, is that a gun? Druella asks, leaning forward to get a closer look. Hey, keep back. Peggy says as she takes a step back but keeps her gun trained on the Hogwarts students. Yes, it's a pistol. I'm not sure which kind though. Tom explains as he draws his wand and completely ignores Peggy. Peggy was about to open fire until she saw that it was just a bony-looking stick. I asked you a question. Who are you and how did you get here? Peggy asks again, but they continue to ignore her. My father talks about guns sometimes. He calls them muggle trinkets. Druella says as she scoffs at the pistol that could very well kill her. Well, then he doesn't understand guns. They are fairly dangerous since they shoot little metal bullets out of them at extremely high speeds. If you don't put up a shield in time, you'll most likely die depending on the severity of the wounds. Tom says as he waves his wand and discreetly uses some magic. Listen to your boyfriend. I could easily kill you with this, so start talking. Peggy says menacingly. You can kill me with a banana? Druella scoffs and blushes slightly at Peggy's assumption. Huh? Banana? Peggy says as she grasps a bright yellow banana where her gun once was. While Peggy is staring at the banana in her hand with shock written all over her face, Tom turns to Steve, who is just as confused as Peggy. Would you like me to take you to Austria, or do you prefer to run as you said? You do have a friend to save after all. Tom says as he taps his wand against his knee. Hearing about Bucky breaks Steve from his confused shock. If you can get me there, I'd be very grateful. Steve decided to save questions for after Bucky is safe. Although Steve didn't know what was happening anymore, he knew that his friend is in trouble. If this mysterious magician will help, then Steve will have to accept. Very well. Let me find out the location and I'll pick you up here in, let's say, half an hour. Make sure you have everything ready by then. Tom says and turns his attention to Peggy, who is still staring at the banana in her hand. Her as well, if she's planning on tagging along. After saying that, Tom waves his wand and they disappear from Steve and Peggy's sight. Who the hell was that? Peggy exclaims as she has no idea what happened. A friend. I think. Tom once again used a notice me not to disappear along with Druella. They then left the tent and called for Mimsy in a secluded area. Yes, master? The elf asks as she appears with a pop. Go rummage through Colonel Phillips' papers and find the location of the Hydra base where the 107th is being held captive. Tom commands and she pops away with a happy smile. Why are we helping these people? Druella asks with a confused expression. What, I can't help muggles out of the goodness of my heart? Tom gives her a small smirk. No, you are a kind person, but not kind enough to fight a war for no reason. Druella says. True, but you'll have to wait and see, won't you? Tom teases, causing Druella to glare at him. When Mimsy returned with the location, Tom had her send some elves to scout the area. Once they returned after scouting, they took Tom to a secluded area near the base. The place was swarming with guards and all of them have futuristic-looking guns that glow in blue light. Those must be the weapons made with the Tesseract. Tom looked at the cool laser guns longingly for a moment. All right, take me back to Druella. Tom orders and the elves popped him back. Is your friend coming soon, or what? Peggy says as she paces in Steve's tent with a banana still clasped in her hand. He said he'd be here in a half an hour. Steve said as he paces as well. His friend is in danger and he's starting to think about running to Austria. Well, that was 31 minutes ago. He's late. Peggy says as she stops pacing. Yes, I am. Sorry for being tardy. Tom says and jump scares Peggy. How do you do that? She questions. Not important. Are you ready to go? Tom says as he stands from the bed. Yes, how are we getting there? Steve asks with a hopeful expression. Magic. Tom replies plainly and points at Peggy. Is she coming along as well? She has a name and it's Peggy. Of course, I'm coming. She says with a bit of annoyance. Then you'll need your gun back. Tom waves his wand and the banana turns back into a pistol. Before anyone could react to the gun changing back, Tom waved his hand and a portal appeared in the tent. "Follow along, everyone," Tom says as he walks through the portal with Druella close behind him. Steve and Peggy stare at the hole that just appeared in front of them. On the other side is a lush forest with Tom and Druella waiting for them. "Let's go, I don't have all day and maybe neither does Bucky." Tom mutters the last part but Steve's super senses picked it up. He decided to go with his plan of ignoring the magician and steps through the portal. When Bucky and all those other soldiers are safe, he'll start figuring out what the hell is going on. As he steps through, a look of awe and wonder graces his face. Seeing that Steve passed through the hole, Peggy followed after with the same look as him. They just traveled through space and maybe time? They have no idea. "Since you decided to accept my help, I should give you some information before you head inside," Tom says as he explains the laser weapons that every Hydra soldier in the base possesses. "You're telling me they're all packing laser guns?" Steve says unbelievably. "I just brought you here through a portal and somehow you draw the line at lasers?" Tom says and Steve scratches the back of his head. "Well, I'm just choosing to ignore all of that for now," Steve says as he looks to the huge Hydra base positioned between two mountains. "Good luck then. We'll intervene if you need help," Tom says with a wave. "Bye. Good luck and don't die," Druella adds. "Wait, you aren't coming?" Peggy asks, but Tom and Druella have already disappeared again. "I'm starting to hate when they do that. That makes two of us." Chapter 81 Rescue Mission, Part 1. Inside the Hydra base. As you can see, production of the Valkyrie is progressing on schedule, even with components of this size. Dr. Arnim Zola says as he reports to Red Skull. The Valkyrie is an advanced bomber plane that Zola has been working on for Hydra. The Valkyrie is a major part of Red Skull's plan for world domination. The plan for world domination culminated with the construction of the first of many super bombers, the Valkyrie, a plane that adapted characteristics of both prop planes and stealth bombers. When it's finished, the Valkyrie would be equipped to launch suicide drone bombs, which double as auxiliary propellers. Its main propulsion is a pair of jet engines, located on the sides of the main console and hangar area. Increase the output by 60% and see to it our other facilities do the same, Red Skull says casually as he looks over the report. "But the prisoners, I'm not sure they have the strength to work for so long," Zola comments with a worried expression. "Then use up what strength they have left, Doctor. There are always more workers." While Zola was worrying for the future of his project, Steve and Peggy started looking for their way into the base. "You could have opened one of your portals for them to get inside, you know?" Druella informs Tom through the mark. "Yes, but I don't want to make it too easy for them," Tom says with a smile. Suddenly, a big cargo truck starts making its way towards the base. Steve sees his chance and picks up Peggy in a bridal carry. "What are you doing?" she asks as she drapes her arms around his neck. "We're going to hide in that truck to get in," he replies and starts running at a superhuman speed. Even with Peggy in his arms, he runs faster than a cheetah. Druella watches him run through the forest and towards the road with a shocked expression. "You weren't lying, were you?" she half asks through the mark. "Nope, he is a super soldier as I've said," Tom replies as he opens a portal into the base to wait for their arrival. Steve and Peggy make it to the road and hide as they wait for the truck to pass. When it does, Steve picks her up again and dashed after the truck. As they got close enough, Steve hopped onto the truck carrying cargo for the base. The back of the truck is filled with metals that are probably used in the construction of laser weapons. They shuffle their way to the back of the cargo area and hide behind a tall pile of neatly stacked metal. Steve had to push the metal forward a bit to make room for their hiding spot, but with his super strength that wasn't a problem. While Steve and Peggy are making their way into the base, Tom and Druella are already inside touring the place. The whole base is basically a factory for guns made by slaves of war. They're worked to the bone and are barely given enough food to survive. Most, if not all of the slaves are soldiers from the Allied forces. Feeling bad for them, Tom decided to cause some mayhem and help Steve out a bit. Finding his to the cells of the prisoners of war, Tom and Druella unlock them all with a bit of magic. As the cells opened, Tom opens a portal into the armory he found while touring. A bunch of guns that were lying around in the armory fell onto the floor in front of the now freed Allied soldiers. The soldiers look at their opened cells with immense happiness. When they saw the guns literally fall from the sky, they all thought that God was finally on their side. Vindictive smiles form on their faces as they all start arming themselves with laser guns. The guards that were occasionally checking on the prisoners started making their rounds. When they saw the prisoners arming themselves, they aimed their rifles at them and prepared to fire. "Hey, fellas," Steve says as he and Peggy appear behind the guards. Steve rushes at a few and takes them down before they could even turn around. While Peggy didn't want to shoot, so she threw some knives at her opponents. The knives sail through the air with expert accuracy and all landed in the Hydra soldiers' heads, killing them almost instantly. "Who are you two supposed to be?" one of the soldiers asks as they just watched two people take out at least 10 highly trained Hydra soldiers equipped with laser weaponry. "I'm Captain America," he says awkwardly as he's still wearing his star-spangled costume from his show. "I beg your pardon?" another soldier asks unbelievably as every soldier continues to arm themselves. "This doesn't matter right now. Is there a Sergeant James Barnes with you guys?" Peggy asks as she's getting tired of this hectic day. "Why are you looking for Barnes?" a soldier asked. "He's my friend. We enlisted together," Captain America says. "He was taken to the isolation ward in the factory, but no one's ever come back from that place." "All right. The tree line is northwest, 80 yards past the gate. Get out fast and give the Nazi bastards hell. I'll meet you guys in the clearing with anybody else I find," Steve says and starts to walk away. "Wait. You know what you're doing?" one of the soldiers calls out. "Yeah, I've knocked out Adolf Hitler over 200 times. Steve yells and he and Peggy start making their way towards the factory. "What? Do you guys think it was him that unlocked the doors and brought the guns?" a soldier asks. "No, the cells need keys and the guns appeared out of nowhere. That guy was strong, but I don't think he can do that. This doesn't matter. Let's go and give these Nazi bastards hell," a soldier exclaims as he holds his laser gun up. War broke out all over the Hydra base as blue lasers were flying everywhere. In the Hydra control room, Red Skull watches the mayhem on the monitors. Seeing his forces getting overrun, he decides to activate the self-destruct sequence, which starts counting down from 7 minutes. "No. What are you doing?" Zola says as he sees Red Skull push the button. "Our forces are outmatched. 6:59. 6:58. 6:57. 6:56. Chapter 82 Rescue Mission, Part 2. 6:59. 6:58. 6:57. 6:56. While the counter started going down, Red Skull secures the Tesseract. Zola packs the blueprints of his designs, especially the Valkyrie. As they make their way through the factory, they're spotted by Captain America. Steve and Peggy see them in a corridor passing by but hesitates to chase when they hear someone calling out. Sergeant. 32557. A raspy voice mutters. After searching for the voice, Steve and Peggy find Bucky Barnes strapped to a chair in one of Schmidt's testing labs. Bucky? Oh, my God. Steve exclaims as he rushes to unstrap Bucky from the chair. Is that? Bucky mutters as he hazily eyes Steve. It's me. It's Steve. He says as Peggy catches up. Steve? Buck asks unbelievably. Come on. Steve helps Bucky to his feet. Steve, is that really you? Bucky asks as he starts to break out of his stupor. Yeah, I thought you were dead. Steve says, happy to see his friend alive. Well, I thought you were smaller. When Steve first saw Zola and Red Skull, Tom and Drusilla were following them. Tom saw the Tesseract in Red Skull's hands and was unsure whether to take it or not. If he takes it now, the story would change and he will have to deal with that. Although with this being a combined world of MCU and Harry Potter, the story may turn out differently anyway. Letting the Tesseract go now may be a very bad move. Fuck it, Tom thought as he and Drusilla break off from Steve and Peggy and start tailing Red Skull and Zola. As Tom does his best to catch up with Zola and Red Skull, Drusilla keeps pace behind him. She could tell that Tom wants something they have. He was nonchalant throughout this entire thing. Only when he saw the red-faced man did he become serious and start chasing after them. While chasing after Zola and Red Skull, the factory has already started exploding. The building shook with every explosion as the fire was spreading everywhere. Parts of the building began to crumble away and Tom knew they had to leave soon. When they caught up to Red Skull and Zola, a showdown had already begun between them and Captain America's group. Each group is standing across one another on a catwalk in the factory. Steve's group on one side and Red Skull's on the other. Tom and Drusilla are behind Red Skull and Zola on their side. Captain America. How exciting. I'm a great fan of your films. It seems Dr. Erskine managed it after all. Not exactly an improvement, but still impressive. Red Skull taunts, causing Steve to punch him hard in the face. The punch could easily knock the head off of a normal man, but Red Skull is no normal man. He merely staggered for a moment and smirked at Captain America. You've got no idea. Steve replies. Haven't I? Red Skull goes to hit Steve back, but the captain protects himself with his prop shield from his show. The shield does its job, but the metal deforms as a big fist-sized dent appears. The shield may be a prop, but it's made out of genuine steel. The power behind that punch was truly monstrous. A fight breaks out as the two sides start engaging one another. Peggy and Bucky wanted to help but weren't sure how to go about it. Two superpowered beings were fighting and coming between that may cost them their lives. Zola has zero intentions of getting involved. He just wants to get the hell out of this imploding factory before it's too late. The fight itself wasn't going well for Captain America. He may have gone through boot camp for the army, but Red Skull has far more combat experience than Steve does. Steve was getting a few good hits in, but for every hit Steve got, Red Skull would land 3 more. As their fight continued, Zola started to become impatient. The explosions around the factory started growing closer and he would not die here. Deciding it was time to go, Zola pulls a lever and the catwalk Steve and Red Skull are fighting on retracts to either side, separating them. No matter what lies Erskine told you, you see I was his greatest success. Red Skull says as gestures to his red face. Wait, that face is because of the same experiment Steve went through? You don't have one of those, do you? Bucky asks his friend with genuine worry in his voice as he looks to see if Steve is wearing a mask. You are deluded, Captain. You pretend to be a simple soldier, but in reality, you are just afraid to admit that we have left humanity behind. Unlike you, I embrace it proudly. Without fear. Red Skull shouts as he and Zola start walking away. Then why are you running? Steve shouts back as they leave the area. Seeing that the building is coming down around them, Steve, Peggy, and Bucky decide to let them go and escape as well. Soon this building won't be standing, and if they're still inside, that won't be good. Tom and Drusilla continue to follow Zola and Red Skull. They made their way up some stairs and Zola starts getting winded. Sir? Are we going to the roof? Zola asks as he huffs for air. Red Skull doesn't answer as he pushes a door open, revealing a one-man plane. They walk up to the plane and Zola sees it only has one seat. What about me? Where will I sit? Zola asks in worry as he wipes the sweat from his brow. Red Skull turns and throws his car keys at Zola. Not a scratch, Doctor. Not a single scratch. Red Skull says menacingly as he points to the beast of a car parked beside the plane. The car looked like a mix of the Mercedes-Benz 540K, the Mercedes-Benz W31 Type G4, and the Bentley Mark V. When Tom saw it, he said to himself that he would be commandeering it sooner or later. Zola wastes no time climbing into the car with all of his blueprints and driving off as fast as he can. When Zola was driving off, Red Skull went to climb into the plane, but before he could get in the cockpit, a voice called out and a blue light filled the area. Imperio. Chapter 83 Omega Yoink. Tom called the spell with his wand aimed at Red Skull's back. By the time Red Skull could react, it was too late. As the blue spell lightning hit his back, he stopped in place and froze where he stood. Don't turn around. Drop the Tesseract and be on your way. Tom says, and Red Skull complies easily without seeing who is commanding him. On the inside, Red Skull felt as if he wanted to do what the voice said. No, he needed to do everything the voice said, and he loved following its orders. A small part of him was still alert though, and that part was fighting as hard as it could to disobey. He had no idea what was happening or how this voice could command him so easily. It truly terrified him. Red Skull placed the Tesseract on the floor and climbs into the plane. As the plane takes off and Red Skull gets away, Tom walks up with a smirk on his face and picks up the Tesseract. As he picks it up, he can't help but let out a laugh. Who knew getting an Infinity Stone would be so simple? Tom thought as he broke out into full-blown laughter. Stop laughing like that. It's creepy. Drusilla remarks from behind Tom. Hee, you would be laughing as well if you knew what this is. Tom laughs once more, creeping Drusilla out. What is it then? She asks with a quirked eyebrow. Boom. The sound of an explosion close by breaks Tom from his laughter and startles Drusilla. I'll tell you later. For now, let's get out of here. Tom says and opens a portal. As they step through the portal, they appear in the tree line outside the exploding Hydra base. As the portal closes, Tom and Drusilla can see the entire factory explode in flames and crumble to the ground. If they stayed any longer, they would have been in some serious danger. Looking to the side, Tom could see all the escaped soldiers gathering around Captain America and his group. Everyone seemed to be all right besides a few small injuries. Of course, some of the Allied soldiers were killed on the way out. Although, the losses were minimal as they had the element of surprise along with high-tech weapons courtesy of Tom Riddle. Steve seemed to be looking around for Tom and Drusilla to come and give them a lift back, but that isn't happening. Tom won't reveal himself and his magic in front of a giant group of people. Still under the notice me not spell, Tom and Drusilla walk over to the soldiers. Tom wrote a quick note and placed it in Peggy's pocket. He would have left it with Steve, but it's doubtful those tights have pockets. The note said to walk back with a smiley face at the bottom. When Peggy would read the note, she will regret coming along to help. After giving Peggy a small tap where the note is to get her attention, Tom and Druella leave the area and open a portal to her room in Rosier Manor. When they arrive, Tom sits on the bed and just stares at the tesseract in his hands. It glows in a blue light that brightens the dark room. "What is that thing?" Druella asks again. Before answering, Tom throws some spells around the room to keep people out and hide their voices. When Druella saw the precautions Tom is taking, she got very serious. This house is filled with Tom's followers who have sworn an oath of loyalty. They would never betray him, yet he still takes these precautions. Whatever that thing is, it must be important. Druella thought as Tom finished securing the room. This glowing blue box isn't anything special, Tom says, confusing Druella immensely. Although, what's inside is a totally different story. He adds mysteriously. "What's inside?" she asks as she stares at the box. "Have you ever heard of the Infinity Stones?" Tom asks, knowing she probably hasn't. "No, are they some sort of magical items?" she asks as she's never heard of them. At the dawn of the universe, there was nothing. Then, boom. The Big Bang sent 6 elemental crystals hurtling across the newly born universe. These Infinity Stones each control an essential aspect of existence. Tom says as he can't keep his eyes off the tesseract, and neither could Druella. "Big Bang?" Druella asks as she's never studied science and lives in a backward society. "It's the beginning of the universe as we know it, but that isn't important right now. What's important are the Infinity Stones," Tom says. "So inside that thing is an Infinity Stone, right?" Druella asks and Tom nods. "What is an Infinity Stone?" Before the universe began, 6 singularities existed. Sometime after the universe exploded into existence, which was the Big Bang as I've said, these singularities were formed into the 6 Infinity Stones by very powerful cosmic entities. Each stone represents a different aspect of the universe. Space, mind, reality, power, time, and soul. Tom explains. "Cosmic entities? Like gods or something?" Druella asks as she tries to wrap her head around this. Something like that." Tom nods as he studied the tesseract for a way to open it up. "All right, but what can they do?" Druella asks. "Anything as long as it has to do with their domain and you're powerful enough to wield them, of course," Tom says as he continues looking for a way into the tesseract. "Anything," Druella repeats as she can now see why Tom was laughing so hard before. "That red-faced guy didn't know what's in there, did he?" "Nope, he did not," Tom replies with a small smirk. "Which of the stones is in there? Do you know?" Druella asks in wonder and receives a nod from Tom. "The Space Stone," Tom answers as he tries a simple unlocking spell on the tesseract, not thinking it would work. "The Space Stone? How do you know?" Druella starts talking but stops as she sees the tesseract start moving. "Huh? I didn't think that would actually work." Chapter 84, Caught Again. "Huh? I didn't think that would actually work." Tom muttered as his spell worked and the top of the tesseract slid open, revealing a shiny blue gem. Druella moves forward and looks enraptured by the beautiful stone. She reaches her hand out in curiosity to grasp the stone, which sends alarm signals through Tom's mind. He quickly smacks her hand away before any part of her skin could touch the stone. Smack. Ow. What was that for? Druella yells as she glares at Tom. "Do you want to die?" Tom asks with a stern expression. "Because touching something of infinite power could very well kill you." "Oh. Sorry," Druella says as she creates more space between her and the stone. "It's all right. Just be careful from now on." Even I'm not going to be touching the stone anytime soon. I'm not nearly strong enough. At least not yet. Tom says as he studies the stone. Because Thanos tracked the stone to Earth in the movie, Tom made sure to place some spells to keep energy from leaving the room. He did this when he threw privacy spells around the room earlier. He hoped it would work, because if it didn't, Tom would be receiving a visit from the Ancient One soon, and later a visit from Thanos. Even if those spells were to fail, the wards of the house should block the energy from leaking out, hopefully. As Tom studied the stone, he invoked every analysis/investigation spell he knew. None of them seemed to work. Every spell wasn't able to give him anything, as if he was analyzing nothing but air. Tom sees that he won't be able to find anything about the stone with wizarding magic, so he will have to use the mystic arts. Before setting up the analysis runes that are currently working on the 2 Deathly Hallows, Tom needs to store the stone in a secure place. Rosier Manor's wards are good and he trusts Druella, but he just doesn't feel good about leaving it here. Drew, do you have a suitcase big enough to store this? Tom asks and Druella finds one in her closet. Thanks. Tom says as he summons eldritch runes that burn themselves on the suitcase. The runes will reinforce the suitcase just in case the power of the Tesseract eats through it. He also put runes to hide any energy from leaving it. Tom then closes the Tesseract and stores it in the suitcase. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. He opens a portal and walks through holding the suitcase carefully. As the portal closes behind him, Druella can't help but worry about her friend. That stone seems dangerous based on Tom's reaction to her trying to touch it. The portal Tom opened lead to his most protected property, Tintagel Castle. This castle was home of King Arthur himself. Based on the books left behind inside, Tom learned that the castle was built with the combined strength of the Fae and Merlin. The place was built on a cross-section of 3 magical key lines as well, which powered some very intricate wards. The only castle that could compare to Tintagel is Hogwarts, but Tom doesn't have full control over it yet. Although Tintagel is a beast of a castle, it isn't sentient like Lady Hogwarts. If Tom had full control over Hogwarts, he would have rather stored the stone there. Before taking the stone out of the suitcase, Tom went to the castle's ward stone. It's located in the dungeons of the castle hidden behind secret passages, and only accessible by those of Pendragon blood. When he made his way through all of the security checks, Tom found the ward stone in all of its glory. Let's see what you can do. Tom muttered as he studied the giant pillar filled with symbols. He wanted to be 100% sure that the wards would block the space stone's energy from leaving the castle. If it doesn't, he would have to find a good room and start working some runic magic. The ward stone is far too complicated for him to add new functions to it after all these years. After studying the ward stone, Tom found that Merlin and the Fae thought of everything while making this castle. It would 100% seal all energy from leaving the premises. Knowing this won't be a problem anymore, Tom went to the castle vault and opened the suitcase. The light of the Tesseract brightened the room in a blue hue. After a quick unlocking spell, Tom could see the beautiful space stone once again. Eldritch runes appeared around Tom's hands as he put the analysis runes on the stone. The runes circle the stone, studying all of its secrets. I have a feeling that this will take far longer than the 2 Hallows. Tom muttered as he decided to move those here too. It's better to have them in a safe location. Opening a portal to his bedroom in Camartage, Tom steps through and goes to pick up the Hallows. As he walked to his desk, he heard someone in the room clear their throat. Ahem, the strangest thing happened today. On the same day you left for Italy, I was no longer able to see the Tesseract in any of the possible future. The Ancient One says, lounging on the sofa in all of her grand baldness. She can't sense the space stone through the portal, as Tintagel's wards can block the energy, but she can see a slight blue glow radiating out of it. Teacher. Why do you keep ambushing me whenever I return from some errands? Tom says as he discreetly closes the portal behind him. Tesseract? What's that? Some sort of relic or something? It glows blue just as the room your portal lead to, and it holds a very powerful stone similar to mine. Drop the act, Tom. You've been caught. She says as she stares at Tom with a quirked eyebrow. Fine, I have it. So what? Tom says as he shrugs his shoulders. You are changing a lot from the timeline I've been planning for. She says with a sigh of annoyance. You said the future changed for the better when I showed up, right? Tom asks and the Ancient One nods her head. You also said that you trust me to do the right thing, correct? Yes. She answers reluctantly. Then trust me as you've said and relax. I may be young and inexperienced, but I know the same future you're preparing for. I'm just prepping in my own way. Tom says with a smirk. By gaining as much power as possible and hoarding objects like the Infinity Stones? His teacher asks. Yup, pretty much. Tom replies without an ounce of regret. When Barney arrives looking for a fight, I want to be able to slap the shit out of him. Why leave the thing he wants most with weak muggles when it can be safeguarded and wielded to protect this world? He added that last bit to help convince her, and she knows it. Be careful, Tom. Your inner pureblood is showing. She replies with mirth in her voice. It's not about wizarding politics. It's about doing all that needs to be done to stop the death of half the universe. You're betting on a future with low odds of winning. Bet on me instead. Tom says as he stares into his teacher's eyes. A stare-down commences and neither side would look away. Hee, you know what, screw it. Fine, I bet on you, but don't let me down. Because it isn't just me you would be letting down. It's half the life of the entire universe, as you've said before. She says as she gets up to leave the room. Thanks, teacher. Since you are willing to bet on me, I'll find a way to help you with your problem as well. Tom says, causing the Ancient One to halt in her steps for a moment before leaving the room. So, he knows about that as well. She thought as she closed the door behind her. Chapter 85 Cock Block. When the Ancient One was finally out of Tom's hair, he gets up and opens a portal back to Tintagel once again. He then grabs the cloak and stone but makes sure not to touch the stone directly. The horrors of what the Gaunt Ring could do kept him alert. The analysis runes that hover over the Hallows follow them as Tom moved them through the portal. Just to be safe, Tom places the Hallows across the vault away from the Space Stone. He doesn't think anything would happen, but it's best to be safe. Who knows what the Space Stone could do? When everything is secure, Tom leaves the vault and locks it tight. Runes appear on the door and glow menacingly, warning any would-be intruders of what could happen were they to ever try breaking in. With that done, Tom returns to Druella, who was waiting patiently in her room with a worried expression. What's with the long face? Tom says as he walks out of a portal and notices Druella's strange atmosphere. Are you sure that stone is safe to have? She sighs in relief when Tom returns without the stone. No, not at all. Although, it's best I have the very dangerous stone with control over space itself, than people without a clue as to what it really is. Tom says and Druella nods reluctantly in agreement. Well, enough about the stone for now. It's late and Steve won't have his heroes return for a few days. Tom says and Druella notices that it's almost morning. I'll have my elves keep track of them and come get you when they arrive back at the camp. As Tom is about to leave, Druella grabs his arm and stops him. You can stay here if you want? She says as a blush forms on her face as she peeks over at her bed. Not here per se, but we have a room prepared for you. Tom stood stunned for a moment. He never expected Drusilla to blush like that. Does she have a thing for me? He thought as he stood stunned for a moment. Sure, why not, but why do you have a room for me already prepared? He asked as he breaks from his stupor. Well, you stayed here for a bit last time, so my parents set one up just in case. She says, lying through her teeth, as she's the one that set up the room for him. Thank them for me then. I'm going to head straight to sleep. It's been a long day and I want to get some rest before the sun rises. Tom says tiredly, and Drusilla leads him to his room. When they get to the room, Drusilla opened the door and walked off quickly. As she rounded the corner leaving Tom's sight, he can't help but chuckle at her behavior. Drusilla is quite cute. Has she always been like this? Tom thought as he entered his room and crashed on the bed. It took the future Howling Commandos 3 days to return to the same camp that laughed Steve off stage. They had to travel through enemy lines and get into friendly territory, which was harder than expected. They were shot at more times than they can count by friendlies that mistook them for Nazis. Dealing with allies was hard, but dealing with the enemy was far easier. Every one of them is armed with futuristic laser guns. No amount of cover can save you from a laser. The lasers could even melt through tanks with easy, killing any Nazis inside. When they arrived, at first they were met with hostility, but once that was cleared up, a huge celebration ensued. Steve was in the middle of this celebration. The future commandos told the other soldiers about Captain America saving the day. Many of the men that made fun of Steve came up to him and apologized profusely. Although, some didn't, but they learned to keep their mouth shut. When Colonel Phillips heard of Steve's arrival, he wanted nothing more than to beat him senseless. Steve disappeared along with Peggy from a secure military camp. The flack he's had to deal with since their disappearance was monumental. A lot of high-level people were beyond angry. They needed Steve to fill the nation's treasury with his Captain America persona. Others were angry about losing their best chance at creating more super soldiers. Although when he heard of the rescue mission's success, he could do nothing but stare stunned at the returned soldiers. I'd like to surrender myself for disciplinary action, Steve said to Phillips the moment he returned. That won't be necessary, Phillips replies, and admitted to himself that he was wrong. When the celebration ended, Steve returned to his tent along with the beautiful Peggy Carter on his arm. As they entered the tent, Peggy made the first move and launched herself into Steve's arms. She worked swiftly and captured his lips, stunning poor virgin Captain America. Before anything could proceed further, sounds of other people could be heard in the tent. "Oh, is this the first kiss between you two?" Tom makes his presence known as he and a blushing Drusilla sit on Steve's bed yet again. Both Steve and Peggy separate with haste, and Steve gives Tom a look saying, "You couldn't have come in the morning?" Drusilla, who just witnessed a heated kiss, couldn't stop peeking at Tom's face with a longing look. Peggy, as a fellow woman, seemed to pick up on this almost immediately. "I think I can check off cock-blocking Captain America from my bucket list." This marks the end of part 10 of the story, I'm Voldemort. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe the video to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.